Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Obviously, we have a lot of people kind of remembering what a Thai stick was. So, if you could just clear that up for people like me who never saw one, what is a Thai stick?
Well, I should thank you. What I should say first of all is that I hear a lot of crazy stories about what a Thai stick was and
Mhm.
what somebody heard from their uncle or from their brother. All kinds of crazy stories. But basically, what Thai stick was, what we found over there in the early '70s, was just a very, very strong marijuana. We had seen nothing like it in the West, nothing like it in California. Up until then, we had marijuana from Mexico, Mexican weed, and the strongest thing we had to smoke was hashish, and then hash oil. But when people saw Thai stick, they just couldn't believe it, and so all kinds of crazy stories were invented about it. In size, it was about Thai stick was very, very strong marijuana. Like I said, it was sensimilla marijuana. That means all the males were pulled from the field, so they just had these beautiful flowering tops. Those were harvested and cleaned pretty much like marijuana is cleaned today in homegrown farms. The leaves were pulled off, the big leaves were pulled off, and all you would have was the beautiful flower. That then was broken apart and tied on a little banana stick, and wrapped up with some kind of thread, either bamboo thread or thread taken from the marijuana stalk itself. That little stick of bamboo was about 5.5 inches long. And then they made a lot of these little sticks and in turn wrapped these in little bundles of 20 sticks to a bundle. And then in turn packed these in bigger bags of 100 sticks, 100 bundles to a big bag. So that's sort of the hierarchy of how we saw Thai sticks when we were buying and selling it commercially. A Thai stick about 5.5 inches long, packed in a little bundle of 20 sticks, put in a bag of about 100 sticks, and that bag weighed 3.5 kilos.
Mhm.
Once again, it was just very, very strong marijuana.
So like I saw a lot of people were thinking had the idea in their mind that the Thai stick and Thai marijuana were the same thing, but this was not the same thing. Well, technically,
No, it is the same thing. It's just a difference in packaging. I mean, Thai stick was just an incredible way of packaging marijuana, and nobody had seen such a thing before. I mean, we weren't even packaging marijuana in any way other than just throwing it in a little plastic bag. So
Mhm.
not only did you have this incredibly strong marijuana, but it was packaged in this incredibly artful way that nobody had ever seen before. So it was like a double whammy. I mean, I hate the phrase, but it basically blew people's mind back then.
Was it just the Thais doing that, or were they also doing that in Cambodia, Laos, kind of outside of those borders, or was it just a Thai thing?
Well, you could say it was just a Thai thing. It was produced in the northeast part of Thailand, along in the region along the Mekong River. And the people that live along that Mekong River don't just, live in Thailand. You can find them across the river in Laos and also in parts of Cambodia. So it really wasn't a national thing as much as it was an ethnic thing.
Right, I get that. I get that. And there was also some thoughts about how were the Thais using Thai sticks? In the States, I was reading a lot about how a Thai stick would be passed around. You break off a little piece, give it to someone else. Is that how the Thais were using it as well, or were they rolling it in a different way? Is that how they were smoking it?
Well, Thais were using marijuana back then, not very much, a little bit. And from that portion, that part of Thailand I mentioned, the northeast,
Yeah.
incidentally, that area is called Isan,
Hmm.
Isan. From that region, they were sending it to other parts of Thailand, small amounts. And generally, Thai would consume marijuana in one of two ways. If he was smoking it, it would generally be in a bong, and sometimes they would mix it with cigarette tobacco and smoke it in a cigarette. The other way was to cook with it, and usually in some form of curry. So that was the way that Thais were using marijuana. but in very, very small amounts. It wasn't until the American GIs, appeared in the area, and the Thais noticed that they liked marijuana and were willing to pay for it, that the business started to grow. Interestingly enough, three of those bases were in the northeast part of Thailand. There was the one right in the middle of what I considered a growing area. That was in the town of Nakhon Phanom. That was a search and rescue base. There was an Air Force base in a town called Korat, and also one called Udon. So those three bases are really where the Thai business started booming, and where Thai marijuana was grown commercially.
So you mentioned the GIs really kind of boosting this industry. Now it seems to me like the GIs were the ones initially bringing back the Thai marijuana to the States, and that was the kind of the introduction of it. How much did Thai marijuana play into kind of cannabis culture as it kind of evolved through this time? And how much was it just like a kind of an actor in the background, kind of part of the scenery?
Well, yes, the GIs were sending it back to the United States. They weren't carrying it so much as sending it back. And at that time, if you were in the military, you had access to what they called the military post office, which they abbreviated APO. That means you could send something in Thailand to the United States, or in Laos or Vietnam to the United States, and wouldn't have to go through customs in the United States. It was basically like just mailing something from a U.S. post office. So quite a lot of it moved around that way, but not huge amounts. And I did learn about some commercial shipments that, of Thai marijuana that originated with GIs. For example, if, let's say an officer had been living in Thailand and now he was moving back, in his home shipment of his furniture and whatnot, larger amounts would go back. Sometimes, for example, a music speaker, a stereo speaker, somebody would send something back, but it was still small at that time. Even as much as GIs were sending it back, it was still small time business. I would guess a novelty is one way of saying it. A few of my friends, hippie friends who were not GIs, got hold of some either through a friend or through a brother or something, and they started getting very interested. But it was about the time that the Vietnam War ended and the GIs were going home that the hippies and the travelers moved into Thailand. So it was almost like an easy handoff. I don't think there was any intent to do it that way, but there had been an infrastructure set up in Thailand, both to service the GIs, not just for marijuana, but recreational activities. There were apartments and houses for their to rent. There were business establishments for the GIs, and there was this, growing marijuana industry set up for the GIs. So when the hippies and the travelers like myself moved in, it was already set up. All we had to do was, sign on and start, sending back more. And that's what happened. That was in the early 70s, I would say, 71, 72, 73, when the first small loads of marijuana were shipped out of Thailand. And it really boomed from there. And that was about the time the GIs went home.
So at this time, I'm hearing a lot about opiated Thai sticks. Were they dipping these things in opium, or is that just a rumor that people were telling each other?
Well, I never saw it, and I'm not going to say it never happened. Somebody probably tried it, but I would say in terms of any scale, not even small scale, it probably didn't happen. You have to consider a few things. For one thing, opium was more expensive than marijuana. Another thing is opium is water soluble, whereas marijuana, the active ingredient of marijuana, is not. So marijuana is soluble in alcohol. So you have that difference right away. I don't know how you would dip it in there. I guess you just dip it in water. But I myself never saw it.
So I'm getting the sense that people just had never seen such strong weed, and they just they kind of leapt to that conclusion. When did Thai sticks start dying out? When did the decline kind of happen?
Well, the first thing that happened is the quality of the marijuana on the Thai stick started to deteriorate and deteriorate badly. I would say that started happening around 1977, 78.
Mm,
There was such a huge demand all of a sudden, it was like a gold rush, if you will, such a huge demand for Thai marijuana that some unscrupulous brokers were saying, "Oh, what the heck? Put it on a smaller stick and a smaller stick, and who cares about the quality?" So that Thai stick itself, I saw deteriorate down to what might have been, from a 5.5 inch stick, maybe down to a 4 inch stick, or even less than that. And sometimes there was not even any flower, no flowering bud tied to it. It was just, rotten leaves. So when somebody would ship that all the way back to the West and basically have to throw it away, they were saying no more sticks. Also, people were beginning to complain about the weight of the stick. Surprisingly enough, they wanted a refund on the gross weight of the sticks. But really, it was a quality thing. And when the ties started showing us, showing me, for example, an untied bud, how beautiful it was, I said, yeah, that's what we want from now on. And the stick pretty much dropped out, very quickly, except for a few guys who wanted some nostalgic value.
because I'm also hearing about like kind of post this time where people were still finding Thai sticks elsewhere, but there was a lot of suspicion that this was just imitation. Did you see a lot of people try to imitate just the form of the Thai stick, like from all over the place, really?
No, I mean, no, not yeah. People were playing in the United States, so they could tie a little on the stick. I think they were maybe having fun, or perhaps they thought they could get added value. But in Thailand, I continued to see Thai sticks, and even some very inventive ones, very big ones that looked something like your cigars, but
Right.
it was just marijuana. There was nothing added to it.
Gotcha.
Although once again, I can't say that somebody didn't try this or that. Putting what you call key for oil. I can't say that somebody didn't do that, but it would be a very involved process and also very expensive. And I don't understand why somebody would do that.
Right. So that actually kind of brings us to I discovered these guys in California that are kind of in name bringing back the Thai stick, but it is going in a cannabis cigar route. Do you think that's just kind of like a bastardization of what a Thai stick was, or is there any kind of honesty to that? You know?
Well, I don't think that's like what the Thai stick was. Like I said, I mean, somebody might have tried it for fun, but no, there was no quantity of Thai sticks made like that.
Hmm.
On the other hand, to those guys, well, why not try something different? It sounds like something fun to do to me. I like all this experimentation I see going on, but I
Right.
don't think you could call it a Thai stick.
I hear that. I get you. Kind of a perspective question. You kind of saw cannabis grow more and more illegal and then less and less illegal. You saw the wave kind of go up and down, and now we're in this age of kind of pre-legalization again. Do you think this whole kind of journey has been for the best, or was that the better time for cannabis culture?
Well, if you wanted to make money, that was a better time. I mean, you had to take risk. So that was a better time. I want to say one thing about, the guys that are growing it, the growers, the guys in California and elsewhere. I mean, I believe now they're producing the best marijuana in the world is
Hmm.
coming out of California. And really, my compliments to these guys. And they've been dogging it out for how many decades now, and they deserve a lot of respect for what they've done in making these magnificent strains of marijuana here. Um, as far as the legalization, I think the government has stuck their nose somewhere with a place they know nothing about, and they should let the people who know something about it control or direct the legalization. It's a mess right now. It could be legalized in a way that would function, but it's certainly not functioning now.
I really have to agree with you there. Even I definitely can see that as well. Um, Kind of looking back, did you start this whole journey as the scammer, the guy going after the money? Did you start that as a criminal? And by the time you were done and through with it, were you a criminal at the end of it? like operating within like a criminal framework?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'd rather use the word gangster than criminal, but
Oh,
call it a criminal, yeah. Um, no, when I started this, no, I didn't feel that way at all. I felt, and I still do feel that the lawbreaker is, the government for denying me my civil liberties. Um, but it seemed much more just fun when I started. Oh, we're just having fun. Towards the end of my career, I really did feel like I was a gangster. Had to hide out, had to sneak around, and hard to make friends. And at the end of my career, I felt like I could successfully continue to smuggle marijuana, but I didn't like the corner that it had pushed me into in terms of my social network.
mm,
I remember one time in Thailand, in the Thai English language newspaper there, the Bangkok Post. They were doing a series of articles on gangs in Bangkok, And when you think of gangs, you think of guys running around with guns and robbing whatever, I don't know, convenience store. But one day I was sitting with my Thai broker, my Thai friend, and these are really nice, non-violent guys. And he came up to me and he says, "Mike, you know what? We're a gang. We really are a gang." And I thought about it and I said, "Yeah, we are a gang. So we were gangsters. Can't deny it."
hey. All right, Mike, thank you so much for helping us out here. That kind of cleared at least it cleared a lot of things up for me. This has all been
Okay.
new information.
I hope
But
it works for you.
yeah, but tell us about your book. Where can we find it?
Thai stick?
Yeah, Thai Stick.
Well, I don't sell it. It was published by Columbia University Press, and they're distributing through Amazon. So you can either get it through Amazon or through Columbia University Press. Um, or I think there's a few of them out there used too. Um, yeah, I have a new book out now too. It's on surf exploration in Bali.
Hmm.
It's called Grajagan, after the well-known surf spot down there, Grajagan or G-Land. That's a pretty good book too. Yeah, and
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, that's awesome.
I might as well promote myself once more. Yeah, Peter McGuire and I are hoping to come out with our documentary Thai Stick maybe this summer. So we've got a few things going.
As soon as this summer. Oh, that's definitely
I
that's a
hope so.
good time for it to come out. I like
Yeah,
it.
things are never come out when you want them to, but we're hoping this summer.
All right, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. All right,
Thank
well,
you.
Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, I enjoy these things, and best of luck to you and your enterprises.
Absolutely, man.